Hello and welcome to the Sales Show. I'm Maree Kirkpatrick, your sales and business strategist. I'm a mum, a wife, and a multi-business owner myself. With over 15 years experience in sales and business, I have worked with startups all the way through to multi-million dollar companies. I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love helping service-based businesses make an income as well as an impact. Let's jump into talking about all things sales and business. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sales Show. My name's Maree Kirkpatrick and I'm so glad that you're joining me today. A little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Maree. I have been in sales for over 17 years and I have worked with startups all the way through to multi-million dollar companies. I have been in corporate myself, where I have rolled out launch plans, sales targets, and projects and strategies and things like that as well. So, being in many different industries has given me a really wide knowledge on sales overall, looking at the foundations, looking at different strategies that work, looking at different techniques, and what people can implement to really get the results that they're wanting out of their business. Now, a little bit of a backstory. I learned to sell many, many years ago when I first started out in the fitness industry. And the way that you were recruited for the job was you had to go to what they called a sales boot camp. They taught you a whole heap of skills. And then towards the end of it, you needed to be able to prove or show that you have learnt and you can articulate those skills effectively and efficiently. And when we were taught to sell, it was very much of like, do whatever it takes to get that sale. And anyone that came through the door was a ideal client and we wanted to work with them. Now, as I have uh, grown and become a lot more self-aware of myself, I'm really clear on what makes me feel good and what makes me drained. And so being in sales, it can be a really, really rewarding career and a rewarding role, or it can be really demotivating and really freaking hard. And so one of the companies that I worked for, they were very big on training. We trained every single month. Someone externally would come in. You had all the tools, the scripts, the training, the tracking, all of it. Everything that you needed to succeed in sales was there. And so I was like, yes, great. This is fantastic. I am excellent at sales. And then I got headhunted by another company that didn't have all the same tools and techniques and frameworks and things like that that I was used to. And so I had to go back to the basics of my skill set. Like, what did I learn? What worked? What didn't work? What can I tweak? What can I change up? What other new techniques can I use to not just help in my sales career, but also help in the companies that I ended up working for? So I went into corporate for a fair few years and I worked for some big well-known brands. And you would think that those well-known brands had a lot of their stuff together, right? Like you would think that they had their sales sorted and that they would be training and all that sort of stuff. When actually the companies that I worked for didn't. They assumed that you had the sales skills, so you were to hit the ground running, and that's the way that it worked. But what I found was that the skills that I had learnt were so specific to the industry that I had learnt them in that it was really hard to kind of swap them over. So I had to go back and do a whole heap of retraining and sitting down and getting really clear on what I enjoyed about sales, the way I enjoyed doing sales. And it came back to really being focused on people and building those relationships. Now, the way that I actually got into business was I fell pregnant with my first son. And I remember the day that I found out, I was like, man, I don't want to be that person that needs to go in and ask for permission on how, on going to sports carnivals or swimming carnivals or tuck shop or concerts or whatever else was going on. I was just so clear that that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be a really present mum, but I also loved a career and I love that drive and excitement to succeed at certain things. And so I'd been procrastinating for years about starting a business. And so I thought, all right, this is the time. And so I went on maternity leave with my son, and my goal was to build the business and hopefully have the business up and running and paying me enough money that I didn't have to go on maternity leave. And I know that this is a story that a lot of women go through. However, my story was a little bit different because I had a whole heap of fear around losing money. I didn't want to invest money into a business and then lose it. So I had to kind of get a little bit creative. So anyway, as I built my first business while I was on maternity leave, it was a e-commerce online store that sold vitamins and supplements for women. And my goal was obviously to get sales through the door. And I knew how to sell face to face. So it was more about how do I take those skills from service based face to face sales into online? What does that look like? How do I get the message across and things like that? So I kind of tweaked and changed things and kind of learnt a whole heap of skills along the way as my business grew. And then one day I was chatting to one of my old vitamins and supplements companies, and he was telling me about that he had a trainer come in and train his team on sales, and it cost him over $7,000, and it just didn't hit the mark. And so I sat there and I was like, ha ha ha, like you should have got me to do it. And he was like, yeah, ha. And then I walked out the door and I thought, wow, like that would be something I would be really excited to give a go, like training people on how to sell from a really beautiful, connected, helping, relationship focused space rather than the pain point type stuff. And so it took me a couple of days and I thought, that's it, I'm going to call him back. And so I called him and I was like, hey, he's like, hey, Maree, I've been thinking about you. Um, I want to know if you want to come in and train my team and do some sales training with us. And I said, oh, wow, I would love to do that. That's something that I've been thinking about. So that's kind of how my consulting started. And so once I did that first training, look, don't get me wrong, I lost a lot of sleep over it in the 2 weeks between the time that we agreed to do it and me actually getting up and training his team. All the self doubt came in, right? Like, am I right for this? Am I good enough for this? Will they like me? Is it going to be engaging? Will they learn anything? All that sort of stuff kicked in for me. Anyway, training happened. They loved it. They got a lot out of it. And so I thought, wow, like this is something I really, really enjoy. And so then my focus was, how do I start this as a career? How do I get more clients? And how do I actually start this as a business as well as the e-commerce business on the side? And so going back to my core was, well, in business, you need to make sales. So I didn't have a logo, I didn't have a website, I didn't have a Facebook page, I didn't have any of that. But my goal was, how do I connect with and find clients? And that always came back to developing those relationships, reaching out, finding the connection, the rapport. What are the problems and challenges that people are having? And then how do I go on to solve that problem that they're having? And how do I get paid to do that? And so for me, that's what the past nearly 10 years has been about. And so for me, it's been so rewarding to see some of the first businesses that I worked with still growing and succeeding and using what I've taught them over the years, still using those tools and techniques. And 5, 6, 7 years later, they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled their income. And it's so satisfying because you see a business that is, under 100K, under 100K when you first start working with them. And then as they start to implement the sales processes and strategies and things like that I teach them, then they are generating a really great income and having a really big impact on the clients that they're serving. So I think overall, my purpose for this podcast is to be able to share some of those tips, advice, and lessons that I've learnt over the past 10 years in business and the things that I use to help my clients grow their businesses and things like that. I think the other thing is that I've developed a sales implementation program because it got to a stage where I wanted to help more people, and I needed to be able to put it all together so that every business that came through, all the information and things like that applied to them. It was just about them implementing it and tailoring it specifically for their company. So I want to be able to show you how you can make more impact and income in your business. And this podcast is a beautiful way for me to connect with you and to connect with more people to help them succeed and to grow their business. I am absolutely looking forward to sharing more about sales and business throughout this podcast journey and on the sales show. And if you've got any questions or you'd love to reach out, please contact me, podcast@mareekirkpatrick.com. Otherwise, you can head over to mareekirkpatrick.com for some free resources or get in touch. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will chat to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Sales Show. Please share it on social media for your friends to see, and make sure you tag me at Maree Kirkpatrick so I can personally say thank you. If you would like to show me some love, leave me a review on Apple Podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Email me at podcast@mareekirkpatrick.com. And if you would like to work with me further or see any of the free resources mentioned on today's show, they can be found at mareekirkpatrick.com. I truly hope this podcast provides useful information and so much value to you so that you can build a business with impact and income.